Captain Lee Soo-jin stared at the green numbers dancing across her screen. Something was wrong with the readings from Kepler 442. The system should have been empty, just another dead star with cold planets spinning in the dark. But her instruments showed massive energy spikes coming from the third planet. "Park Tae-ho," she called to her sensor officer. "Check those readings again. Something's not right." The young lieutenant ran his fingers over the console, frowning at the data. "Captain, I've checked 3 times. There's definitely something big happening down there. The energy patterns don't match anything we've seen before." Soo-jin walked to the main viewing screen and touched the control panel. "Let's take a closer look." The Pathfinder moved closer to the planet, and what they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. The world below sparkled like a giant jewel, but not in a beautiful way. Strange crystal formations covered most of the surface, growing in twisted spires that reached toward space. The crystals pulsed with an ugly blue light that hurt to look at. "What are those things?" whispered Engineer Yoon Hai-ri from her station. Before anyone could answer, they spotted something else. Scattered across the planet were large dome structures made of what looked like living metal. Inside the domes, they could see movement. Cities. People. "There's life down there," said Commander Kim De-yoon, the ship's science officer. She was already running scans on her equipment. "I'm reading multiple life signs, thousands of them, but the numbers are dropping." Soo-jin felt her heart speed up. In 20 years of space exploration, humanity had never found another intelligent species. They had found dead worlds, empty ruins, and lots of rocks, but never living aliens. "Can you get more details?" she asked. Da-eun worked quickly, her instruments humming. "The beings appear to be humanoid but different. Taller than us, and I'm seeing what might be wings. They're gathered in those dome cities, but the domes are failing. Life support is breaking down." On the screen, they watched one of the crystal formations grow larger, reaching toward the nearest dome like grasping fingers. Where the crystals touched the dome's surface, the metal began to change, becoming hard and lifeless. "The crystals are attacking them," Park Tae-ho said quietly. Dr. Bae Ji-woo, their medical officer, joined them on the bridge. "Captain, I need to see this closer. Can we send down a probe?" Soo-jin nodded. "Do it." The probe launched smoothly, diving through the planet's atmosphere. Its cameras showed them a world in its death throes. The crystal formations weren't just growing randomly. They were spreading like a disease, turning everything they touched into more crystal. Trees became glass sculptures. Rivers turned into frozen streams of blue mineral. Even the air seemed thick with crystal dust. But the most heartbreaking sight was the aliens themselves. Through the probe's cameras, they could see tall, graceful beings with large wings folded against their backs. Their skin had a slight blue tint, and their faces were more angular than human faces, but their eyes showed the same emotions humans felt: fear, sadness, desperation. "They're trying to fight it," Da-eun observed. Groups of the aliens stood around, the crystal growths holding devices that glowed with soft light. They seemed to be trying to heal the crystals somehow, to change them back into living things. Sometimes it worked for a few moments. A crystal tree would shimmer and become green again. But then the blue light would return, and the crystal would grow back stronger than before. "Their technology is impressive," Ji-woo said, studying the readings. "It's based on biological harmony rather than mechanical force. Very advanced, but it's not working," Soo-jin finished. They watched one group of aliens work for hours trying to save a single tree. When they finally succeeded, turning the crystal bark back into living wood, they celebrated. But their celebration was short. Within minutes, the crystal disease returned, spreading faster than before. The aliens stepped back, defeated. "How many of them are left?" Soo-jin asked. Da-eun checked her numbers. "Based on the life signs in the domes, maybe 300,000. But the population is falling fast. I estimate they lose about 1,000 individuals every day. What's killing them?" "The crystals aren't just changing the environment. They're changing the air itself. The aliens need a specific gas mixture to breathe, and the crystals are converting it into something toxic. The domes are their last defense, but they're failing one by one." Sujin watched another dome flicker and dim. Through the probe's cameras, she could see aliens inside running toward the center as the outer sections filled with crystal growth. "How long do they have?" she asked. Da-un was quiet for a long moment. "At this rate? Maybe 6 months? Maybe less." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Every person there understood what they were seeing. An entire civilization was dying, and there was nothing they could do about it. Earth Command would never approve a rescue mission for aliens who offered no strategic advantage. Humanity had its own problems, its own colonies to protect. But as Sujin watched the aliens below continue their hopeless fight against the crystal plague, she made a decision that would change everything. "Park Tae-ho," she said quietly. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we found something interesting and need more time to investigate." "What should I tell them we found?" Sujin looked at her crew. Every face showed the same determination she felt. "Tell them we found people who need help." The message from Earth Command arrived 2 days later, and it was exactly what Captain Lee Sujin expected. Commander Kim Da-yoon read it aloud to the assembled crew in the main meeting room. "UES Pathfinder, you are ordered to return to Earth immediately. Do not make contact with alien species. Do not share human technology. Resources cannot be spent on non-strategic operations. Failure to comply will result in court-martial." Sujin looked around the room at her 37 crew members. These people had followed her through asteroid fields and solar storms. They had trusted her judgment for 3 years of deep space exploration. "Well," she said simply. "What do we do?" Chief Engineer Yoon Hairi spoke first. "I didn't join the space service to watch people die." "The aliens have nothing to offer us," said Lieutenant Park Tae-ho. "Earth Command is right about that. No rare metals, no useful technology. We can understand quickly, no strategic position." "So?" asked Dr. Bae Ji-woo. "So I don't care," Park Tae-ho continued. "Some things are more important than strategy." One by one, the crew voted. Every single person chose to stay and help the dying aliens. Sujin felt a mix of pride and fear. "You all understand what this means. We're disobeying direct orders. Our careers are over. We might face prison when we get back." "If we get back," added Commander Da-un quietly. "Then we better make sure we succeed," said Yoon Hairi with a grin. Dr. Ji-woo had already been studying the crystal plague for 2 days. She worked with the ship's computers to analyze everything their probes had recorded. What she found was disturbing. "The crystals aren't natural," she announced to the senior staff. "This is a weapon. Someone created this plague to destroy biological life and replace it with mineral structures." "Who would do such a thing?" asked Da-yoon. "Someone who wanted to terraform this world for themselves, but couldn't wait for the slow natural process. The crystals are programmed to consume organic matter and convert it into a crystal matrix that can support different kinds of life." Sujin studied the data on her tablet. "But the aliens are still fighting it. They must have some kind of defense." "They do, but it's not working well enough. Their technology is based on harmony and healing. They try to cure the crystals like they would cure a disease. But this isn't a disease. It's an invasion." The next day they made first contact. Sujin took a small team down to the planet in a shuttle, landing near one of the larger domes. The aliens who met them were even more impressive in person. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with broad wings that folded elegantly against their backs. Their faces were narrow and angular, with large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. The one who appeared to be their leader stepped forward. A small device on his chest translated his words into English. "I am Veltar of the Vellani people. You are the beings from the metal skyship? I'm Captain Sujin of the human species. We came to help." Veltar's large eyes showed surprise. "Help? You barely know us. Why would you risk yourselves for strangers?" Sujin didn't have a good answer for that, so she gave the simple truth. "Because you need help, and we can give it." Dr. Ji-woo spent hours with the Vellani scientists, studying their methods for fighting the crystal plague. She watched them use devices that sang with beautiful tones, trying to convince the crystals to return to their original form. Sometimes it worked, but only temporarily. Your approach is wrong, Jiwoo finally told Veltar. You're trying to heal something that was never meant to be healed. This plague was designed to be permanent. We cannot make war on nature, Veltar replied. It goes against everything we believe. Then you're going to die believing it, Jiwoo said bluntly. This isn't nature. This is a weapon, and weapons need to be fought, not healed. She showed them her preliminary research. Humans have been fighting hostile environments for thousands of years. We've learned that sometimes you have to be brutal to survive. The Vellani scientists looked shocked when Jiwoo demonstrated her first anti-crystal weapon. It was crude compared to their elegant healing devices, just a modified plasma torch that burned hot enough to melt crystal into slag. But it worked. The crystals didn't grow back. You destroy them completely, whispered a young Vellani scientist named Kailan. Sometimes destruction is the only cure, Jiwoo replied. Back on the Pathfinder, the crew worked around the clock to develop more weapons against the crystal plague. Chief Engineer Hairi modified mining tools into crystal-cutting devices. Security Chief Lim Kyung-soo designed explosive charges that could clear large crystal formations quickly. But their biggest breakthrough came when Jiwoo realized that human biological warfare research could be useful. She began developing modified bacteria that could eat the crystal matrix from inside. This is so different from our way, Veltar told Soo-jin as they watched human and Vellani teams working together. Your people attack problems directly with force. Is that bad? Soo-jin asked. No, Veltar said thoughtfully. Perhaps it is what we needed. We have been trying to save our world with kindness for so long that we forgot sometimes kindness means being harsh with your enemies. 3 weeks after they started working together, they achieved their first major victory. A crystal formation covering 50 square miles was completely destroyed, replaced by new growth from Vellani bioseeds. The land was healing. But as news of their success spread, both species knew the real battle was just beginning. The first ship arrived 3 weeks after Captain Soo-jin sent her secret message through the underground networks that connected human colonies. It wasn't a military vessel or an official rescue ship. It was the cargo hauler Iron Horse, piloted by Captain Oh Byung-ho, a gruff freight runner who had spent most of his life moving supplies between mining colonies. Got your message, Oh Byung-ho told Soo-jin over the radio as his ship approached the planet. Heard you found some folks who need help. Earth Command will not be happy about this, Commander Kim Da-eun warned. Earth Command can kiss my exhaust, Oh Byung-ho replied. I've got mining equipment, explosives, and a crew of 20 volunteers. Where do you want us? Within days, more ships began arriving. Dr. Song Yoon-bi came in a converted research vessel filled with scientific equipment. Sergeant Lim Kyung-soo brought a squad of former soldiers and enough weapons to level a small mountain. Captain Nam Ji-ho arrived with 3 cargo ships full of construction materials. None of them had been ordered to come. None of them expected payment or rewards. They came because word had spread through the human colonies about the first alien species humanity had ever found, and that species was dying. This is insane, muttered Lieutenant Park Tae-ho as he watched the growing fleet of human ships in orbit. We're going to have 50 vessels here by next week. Good, said Chief Engineer Yoon Hae-ri. We need all the help we can get. On the Tao planet's surface, the difference between human and Vellani approaches became clear immediately. The Vellani worked in small groups, using precise instruments to carefully convert small patches of crystal back into living matter. They moved slowly, making sure not to disturb the natural balance of the environment. The humans attacked the crystal plague like they were fighting a war. Sergeant Lim's team used explosives to blast apart large crystal formations, then moved in with plasma torches to burn away the remains. Captain O's miners brought heavy equipment that could tear crystal spires out of the ground by their roots. Dr. Song's scientists developed chemical weapons that dissolved crystals on contact. Your people are so violent, Veltar observed as he watched a human team demolish a crystal forest in less than an hour. Violence has its place, replied Dr. Bae Ji-woo. Sometimes the direct approach is the best approach. The young Vellani scientist, Kylan became fascinated by human methods. He followed Sergeant Lim's team around, asking endless questions about their tactics. "Why do you blow up the crystals instead of trying to change them back?" Kylan asked. "Because changing them back is temporary," Lim explained, setting charges around a crystal formation. "They just grow back stronger. But if you completely destroy them, they can't regrow." "But what about the environmental damage?" Lim pointed to a section where they had cleared crystals the week before. New Volani plants were already growing there, healthier than they had been in years. "Your people can fix environmental damage. They're good at growing things. We're good at clearing away the things that stop growth." The collaboration between humans and Volani created solutions neither species could have developed alone. Engineer Shin Bora worked with Volani biotechnicians to create hybrid weapons that combined human destructive power with Volani biological precision. They developed targeted viruses that could attack specific types of crystals while leaving others untouched. Dr. Song's team discovered that human electromagnetic warfare techniques could disrupt the crystal plague's communication network. The crystals weren't just growing randomly. They were connected, sharing information about how to adapt to different attacks. By jamming their signals, the humans could prevent the crystals from learning and adapting. "You fight like the crystals are an enemy army," observed Veltar. "Because they are," replied Captain Nam Jiho. "They're organized, they adapt, they communicate. That makes them an army, even if they're not alive in the way we understand it." The breakthrough came when Kylan suggested combining his people's biological harmony techniques with human brute force methods. Working with Dr. Jiwoo, they developed a two-stage attack. First, human weapons would break down the crystal's defensive structures. Then, Volani healing techniques could reach the core programming and rewrite it, turning the crystal's own growth energy against itself. The first test was spectacular. A crystal formation covering 10 square miles simply collapsed in on itself, leaving behind rich soil that was immediately ready for new plant growth. "It worked," whispered Kylan, staring at the cleared land. "Of course it worked," said Sergeant Lim, patting the young alien on his wing. "Human stubbornness plus Volani intelligence equals results." But their success brought new challenges. The crystal plague began adapting faster, developing new defensive measures against human attacks. Formations that had been easy to destroy became harder to crack. The crystals started growing in different patterns, creating maze-like structures that were difficult to navigate. "They're learning," Dr. Song reported during a joint strategy meeting. "Every time we destroy them, they become smarter." "Then we learn faster," said Captain Sujin simply. The humans responded by becoming more creative. When explosives stopped working, they tried acid. When acid failed, they used gravity weapons borrowed from asteroid mining operations. When the crystals developed resistance to biological attacks, the humans switched to purely mechanical destruction. Young Volani began learning human tactical thinking. They started carrying weapons alongside their healing devices. They learned to think like soldiers instead of just scientists. "We are becoming like you," Veltar told Captain Sujin one evening as they watched mixed teams of humans and Volani working together to clear another crystal field. "No," Sujin replied. "You're becoming yourselves, but stronger. We're not changing who you are. We're just teaching you that sometimes being gentle means being fierce with the things that hurt others." As the weeks passed, green patches began appearing across the planet's surface where crystal wastelands had been. The tide was turning, but the war was far from over. 4 months into the fight, the crystal plague was getting smarter. Dr. Song Eunbi watched her latest weapon test fail completely. The acid that had worked perfectly last week now had no effect on the new crystal formations. "They're adapting faster than we expected," she told the Joint Command meeting. Around the table sat humans and Volani leaders, their faces showing the strain of constant battle. Captain Oh Byung-ho leaned back in his chair. "So we adapt faster. That's what humans do." "It's not that simple," said Veltar, the Volani leader. "We've lost 3 domes this week. The crystals are growing underground, now attacking our cities from below." The news was grim. The Iron Horse had been lost when crystals suddenly erupted through its landing bay. Captain O and most of his crew survived, but they lost valuable equipment and supplies. 2 other human ships had suffered similar attacks, but Captain Lee Soo-jin noticed something in the reports that others missed. "The crystals are making mistakes," she said, studying the data on her tablet. "What do you mean?" asked Commander Kim Da-yoon. "Look at the attack patterns. They're trying to counter everything we do at once. That's making them unstable. They're spreading their adaptations too thin." Dr. Bae Ji-woo nodded slowly. "She's right. It's like a disease trying to become immune to every medicine at the same time. It weakens the overall structure." Young Kylan, who had become the unofficial liaison between the species, spoke up. "My people have a saying, the tree that bends, in every wind breaks in the first strong storm." "Exactly," said Soo-jin. "So we give them a storm they can't bend against." The new strategy was typically human in its simplicity and brutality. Instead of using different weapons against different crystal types, they would hit every formation with everything at once. Explosives, acid, biological weapons, electromagnetic pulses, and plasma fire, all at the same time. "You want to overwhelm them," said Veltar. "We want to break them," corrected Sergeant Lim Kyung-soo. "Make them choose between defending against one attack and dying to all the others." The first major test came at the Broken Spire, a massive crystal formation that had resisted all previous attacks. It stood 300 feet tall and covered an area the size of a city. The crystals there had adapted to every weapon humans and Vellani had used. 50 human and Vellani teams surrounded the formation. At Soo-jin's signal, they attacked with coordinated fury. Explosives shattered the outer shell. Acid ate through the middle layers. Biological weapons attacked the core programming. Electromagnetic pulses disrupted the crystal's communication network. Plasma torches cut through anything that remained standing. The Broken Spire collapsed in less than 10 minutes. "It worked," breathed Dr. Song, watching the readings on her instruments. The crystals couldn't adapt to everything at once. But their celebration was short-lived. The Crystal Plague's response was swift and terrifying. Instead of trying to adapt to human weapons, it began changing the rules of the fight. Crystal formations started appearing in space, growing on the hulls of human ships. They erupted from the ground without warning, creating traps for unwary teams. Worst of all, they began attacking the atmosphere itself, trying to change the air composition faster than the Vellani domes could compensate. "We're losing ground again," reported Captain Nam Ji-ho during an emergency meeting. "They've stopped trying to be clever. Now they're just trying to kill everything as fast as possible." The crisis came when the largest Vellani city, home to nearly 100,000 survivors, came under direct attack. Crystals erupted through the dome's foundation, growing so fast that evacuation was impossible. "We need a new plan," said Veltar, his translated voice showing desperation. "My people are trapped." Dr. Ji-woo had been working for weeks on her most ambitious project yet. She called it the Genesis virus, a biological weapon that could rewrite the Crystal Plague's core programming from within. "It's not ready," she told the assembled leaders. "I need at least another month of testing." "We don't have a month," said Soo-jin. "Can it work?" "Maybe. The virus should turn the crystal's own growth energy against them, making them consume themselves. But if it fails, it could make the plague stronger." Engineer Shin Bo-ra looked at the data. "What are the odds of success?" "Honestly, about 50-50. The room fell silent. Outside, they could hear the distant sound of explosions as human and Vellani teams fought to slow the crystal advance on the trapped city. "I'll take 50-50 odds," said Captain Oh Byung-ho. "Better than the 0% chance those people have if we do nothing." The plan was desperate but simple. Dr. Ji-woo's Genesis virus would be deployed directly into the heart of the crystal formation attacking the Vellani city. If it worked, the crystals would destroy themselves. If it failed, the city would fall anyway. Kilan volunteered to deliver the virus. As a Vellani, he could get closer to the city's biolocks than any human. You don't have to do this, Sujin told him. Yes, I do, the young alien replied. You taught us that sometimes being gentle means being brave. The delivery went perfectly. Kylan reached the crystal formation's core and injected the Genesis virus directly into its communication center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystals began to scream. It was a sound like breaking glass mixed with electronic feedback. The crystal formation writhed and twisted, its blue light flickering. Sections began collapsing as the virus spread through the structure. Within hours, the entire formation had consumed itself, leaving behind nothing but empty space and rich soil. The trapped Villani city was free. But more importantly, the Genesis virus was spreading to other crystal formations through their communication network. Across the planet, crystal spires began, collapsing as they turned their own growth energy inward. We did it, whispered Dr. Song, watching the readings from orbit. The plague is destroying itself. The tide had finally turned. 6 months after the Genesis virus spread across the planet, Admiral Quan Jae-sung arrived with a full Earth command, battle fleet. 12 warships dropped out of hyperspace around Kepler 442, their weapons powered and ready for whatever they might find. What they found was not what Earth Command expected. The planet below was green and growing. Where crystal wastelands had covered the surface, forests now stretched to the horizon. Villani cities sparkled under biodomes that pulsed with healthy light. Human settlements dotted the landscape, their metal buildings mixed with Villani organic structures in ways that somehow looked perfectly natural. This is Admiral Quan to the UES Pathfinder, came the stern voice over the radio. Captain Lee Soo-jin, you will report to my flagship immediately to face charges of disobeying direct orders. Captain Soo-jin straightened her uniform and looked around the bridge of her ship. Her crew had been with her for 8 months of impossible battles. They had saved an entire species and gained humanity its first alien allies. Now they would probably all go to prison. I'll come with you, said Commander Kim Da-yoon. We all will, added Chief Engineer Yoon Hairi. No, Soo-jin said, firmly. This is my responsibility. You all followed my orders. We all chose to stay, corrected Dr. Bae Ji-woo. Nobody forced us. An hour later, Soo-jin stood in the conference room of Admiral Kwan's flagship, surrounded by Earth Command officers who looked like they wanted to throw her out an airlock. The charges were serious. Disobeying direct orders, unauthorized first contact with alien species, risking human lives for non-strategic purposes, and starting an interstellar incident. Captain Lee, Admiral Kwan said coldly, do you understand the severity of your actions? Yes, sir. You put human lives at risk for aliens we knew nothing about? Yes, sir. You ignored direct orders from Earth Command and convinced dozens of other captains to do the same. Yes, sir. Admiral Kwan leaned forward. And what do you have to say for yourself? Soo-jin looked at the stern faces around the table. These were good people, she knew. They were trying to protect humanity, to make sure their species survived in a dangerous galaxy. But they were thinking too small. Admiral, she said quietly, with respect, I think you're asking the wrong question. Excuse me? You're asking why I disobeyed orders. You should be asking what we accomplished by disobeying them. Before Admiral Kwan could respond, the conference room door opened. Veltar entered, flanked by 2 other Villani leaders. The aliens had to duck slightly to fit through the human-sized doorway, their wings folded carefully against their backs. I apologize for interrupting, Veltar said through his translator device. But I wish to speak on behalf of Captain Lee and her people. Admiral Kwan stared at the 8-foot-tall alien. This was his first time seeing a Villani in person. You're their leader. I am Veltar of the Villani Council. 8 months ago, my people were dying, our cities were failing, our children were sick, and our world was turning to lifeless crystal. We had perhaps weeks left before our species ended forever. The room was completely silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Your Captain Lee found us when we had given up hope, Veltar continued. She could have followed her orders and left us to die. Her commanders told her we offered nothing valuable to humanity. No rare metals, no strategic advantage, no useful technology. Admiral Kwan shifted uncomfortably. The resource allocation calculations were clear. Yes, they were, Veltar agreed. By every logical measure, saving my people was a waste of human time and energy. But Captain Lee and her crew chose to help us anyway, simply because we needed help. Veltar touched a control on his translator, and images appeared on the conference room's main screen. They showed the planet as it was now. Green forests, clean rivers, cities where humans and Villani worked side by side. Your people taught us something we had forgotten, Veltar said. That sometimes survival requires not just wisdom, but courage. Not just intelligence, but determination. We had the knowledge to fight the crystal plague, but we lacked the will to fight it properly. The images changed, showing human and Villani teams working together on new technologies. Medical devices that combined human engineering with Villani biological expertise. Ships that used Villani organic materials with human propulsion systems. Weapons that could protect both species from future threats. In saving us, Veltar said, your people gained something more valuable than rare metals or strategic positions. You gained partners, friends, family. Admiral Kwan studied the images. The technology being developed was decades ahead of anything Earth had produced alone. The medical advances could save millions of human lives. The defensive systems could protect human colonies from threats they didn't even know existed yet. What are you offering humanity? He asked. Everything we have, Veltar replied simply. Our knowledge, our resources, our friendship. But more than that, we offer you something your species already possesses, but sometimes forgets. Which is the knowledge that some things are worth fighting for not because they benefit you, but because they are right. Admiral Kwan looked at Captain Sujin, who had remained silent during Veltar's speech. And what do you think we fight for, Captain? Sujin thought about the past 8 months. The battles against impossible odds. The humans who had volunteered to help strangers they had never met. The Villani who had learned to fight like warriors to protect their families. The children of both species who now played together in gardens that grew from former battlefields. We fight so that nobody has to fight alone, she said. That's what makes us human. Admiral Kwan was quiet for a long time. Finally, he stood up and looked around the room at his officers. All charges against Captain Lee and her crew are dropped, he announced. Furthermore, Captain Lee, you are hereby promoted to Admiral and placed in command of the new joint human-Villani exploration fleet. 6 months later, Admiral Sujin stood on the bridge of the UES VCS New Dawn, the first ship built jointly by both species. Her co-captain was Kailan, now grown into a confident leader who wore both human tactical gear and traditional Villani crystals. Where to first? Kailan asked as the ship prepared to launch toward unknown stars. Sujin smiled, looking out at the recovered world below them. Wherever someone needs help. That's what we do now. The dying world had become a symbol that spread across the galaxy. When humanity decides something is worth fighting for, they don't fight alone. And they don't fight just to win. They fight to make sure nobody else has to face the darkness by themselves.